Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Let the doors be open, que l'on ouvre les portes. Statements by members. The Honourable Member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to honour the life of Jack Moran, a constituent and longtime resident of London, a community he passionately fought to make a better place throughout his life. Democracy depends on dedicated volunteers, and Jack was exactly that. He was known locally as a political organizing legend, a deeply committed Liberal volunteer who fought for our party's shared values. Jack gave generously of his time, knowledge, and resources to provincial and federal riding associations and election campaigns. All along, he encouraged people to fight for a better country and better world. Above all, Mr. Speaker, Jack was a proud family man and someone who had strong faith in God. He was predeceased by his wife, Beverly Ann, proud father to his children, Susan, Linda, Kathy, Nancy, Michael, and a loving grandfather to Tara, Courtney, Zach, Hope, and Patience. Jack, rest in peace, my friend. Thank you for always leading by example. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Speaker, I have a lot of questions for this government. Why, in 5 years, haven't they got a softwood lumber deal that will keep mills from closing? Why have they not been able to get nation-building projects like Petronas LNG, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and Tech Mines approved and built? Why did they not negotiate a better deal with the U.S. so aluminum in Quebec and automotive in Ontario wouldn't be punished? Why can they find money to build infrastructure in China but can't find money for veterans? Why can't they say no to Huawei? Why do they give millions to MasterCard when seniors can't afford to live? Why do they want to spend $40 billion a year on pharmacare when they could put Canadians who don't have a plan on the existing provincial plans for less than a tenth of that cost? And why is the Prime Minister leaving on a junket to Africa to schmooze them for a Security Council seat when they're pressing issues here at home? Why won't this Liberal government put Canadians first?
The Honourable Member for Sackville-Preston, Chiswick-Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A short while ago, we lost a great Canadian from Prince Edward Island. Mr. Edgar Gallant had a long and brilliant career in the Canadian public service. Mr. Gallant also stood out for his involvement with the Francophonie. He chaired committees that implemented Francophone school systems in Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and Manitoba. He was awarded many distinctions over the years, including Officer of the Order of Canada, Order of the Pléiade, the Vanier Medal of the Canadian Public Administration Institute, the Excellence Award for Official Languages, and FCA's Boreal Award. His achievements also inspired the creation of the Edgar Gallant Award, created by the National Federation of Francophone School Boards of Canada, and I was a proud recipient of that award in 2015. Thank you, Mr. Gallant. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Mr. Speaker, I would like to congratulate the organization called La Ressource pour Personnes Handicapées on their successful annual telethon. Once again, this year, thanks to the generosity of the citizens of Abitibi-Témiscamingue and northern Quebec, fundraising exceeded their target of more than $550,000. This amount will allow this organization to fulfill its mission and provide assistance services, in-home rehabilitation therapy, support for access to medical supplies within and outside the region, bursaries, support for social integration, and many other specialized services. I would like to wish a long life to this dynamic organization that provides services to people living with a range of disabilities. Once again, congratulations for your achievement. Thank you to Rémi Maillot and his équipe, his team, and all the volunteers.
Kings Hence.
Mr. Speaker, Maitland, Nova Scotia, and my riding of Kings Hants is a small but historically important community to our province and our country. Situated on the Minas Basin with the highest tides in the world, Maitland is where Canada's largest wooden ship, the W.D. Lawrence, was built in 1874. It is also home to Canada's oldest general store, Freeze and Roy, which has been serving customers along the Hants shore and beyond since 1839, a full 28 years before Confederation. Friesenroy was a key business during the golden age of sail, an era when the completion of the Shubenacadie Canal placed Nova Scotia and Maitland as a world leader in shipbuilding. Mr. Speaker, I've had the pleasure of shopping at Friesenroy. It remains a key hub for our community and is a truly unique experience, as there remains many items at the store that give a unique perspective of our storied past. I would like to congratulate the current owners, Troy and Teresa Robertson, and wish them all continued success in the years ahead.
Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring the attention of the House to a remarkable Coptic Orthodox woman named Maggie Gobron, affectionately called Mama Maggie and often referred to as the Mother Teresa of Egypt. Over the past year, I have had the privilege of becoming familiar with her work in the slums of Cairo and across Egypt. Mama Maggie is the founder of Stephen's Children, one of the largest charities in the Middle East. Stephen's Children exists not only to serve the poor and disadvantaged, but also to elevate them to a sense of their dignity as children of God. The ministry serves Christians, Muslims, and anyone else in need in Egypt and contributes to cultivating a culture of pluralism and respect for minorities. Last week, I was pleased to join 4 other members of our caucus in nominating Mama Maggie for the Nobel Peace Prize. In learning about her work and engaging with those in her organization, it's clear that Mama Maggie has no intention of being honored for her remarkable selflessness, dedication, and radical love for each person she encounters. But recognition and awareness helps to strengthen the important work that she is doing. So I hope that all members will join me in supporting this Nobel nomination. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke.
Mr. Speaker, il y a peu de...
There are few major cities who can boast having right in their midst a mountain where one can go skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, fat biking, and the list goes on. In Sherbrooke, we are fortunate to have the Mont Bellevue. Even though this mountain will celebrate its 60th year, it is far from retiring. It is a must-see for residents and tourists throughout the eastern townships. Children cut their teeth on these slopes, and more experienced skiers go there for fun. This birthday seasonal programming is already full, which is a sign of how dynamic our region is. I actually went to February 1st's all-night event to ski the slopes with my family. Happy 60th birthday, Mont Bellevue.
Member for Spadina, Fort York.
The riding that I represent is geographically small enough that when shootings happen, the sirens are literally heard in every corner of Spadina, Fort York. Last Friday, when gunfire broke out on the 32nd floor of a City Place condominium, all of downtown was rattled but not surprised. Too many guns are going off in Toronto, too many people are dying, and too many people are terrified in the aftermath. Residents are demanding stronger gun control, investments to create more resilient communities, and supports to help young people make better choices. I support these goals, and I'll fight for them in this Parliament. But, Mr. Speaker, condo residents are asking for something else. Too many of these shootings are tied to short-term rentals. People in my riding are demanding that Airbnb and other sharing platforms obey city bylaws. Rules are in place to clamp down on multiple listings and units being rented out for parties. The city has moved to protect those of us who live in condominiums. It's time for Airbnb to obey the law and drop their lawsuit.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin, Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, wasteful spending and Liberal governments go hand in hand. Who can forget former Liberal Minister David Dingwall's infamous statement, "I'm entitled to my entitlements." Exactly. On one 10-day tour, the Prime Minister's flight spent, wait for it, $143,000 on food and alcohol. Given the massive debts that this government is running up, they're putting it on our nation's credit card. Maybe it's a MasterCard. Every day, Mr. Speaker, Canadians in this country are struggling to make ends meet. They deserve better than this. When will this Liberal government stop wasting taxpayer money on fine dining and boozy flights?
Honourable Member for Nepean.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to offer my support to the proposed Vietnamese Boat People Museum project in Ottawa. The objectives are to present the historical facts of the quest for the freedom of Vietnamese refugees and to showcase the contributions of the Vietnamese community in Canada. This noble initiative is led by Mr. Can Lê, who is the president of Vietnamese Boat People Museum Project and who's also the president of the Vietnamese Canadian Centre. Some of the other supporters include HoC Nguyen, president of the Free Vietnamese Canadian Community of Ottawa, Tu Tran, President of the Vietnamese Canadian Cultural Organization of the National Capital, Ottawa, and An Hong, President of the Association of Veterans of the Republic of Vietnam Armed Forces of Ottawa. This museum will also feature a community service, and it will be an excellent addition to the multicultural fabric of Ottawa. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Mr. Speaker, there is a person in my riding of Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier, Émilie Sans-Fasson, who sadly was given not one but 2 cancer diagnoses. There are thousands of Canadian men and women who are handed this kind of verdict, and they often have to stop working in order to get treatment and for some ensure a healthy convalescence. The direct consequence of this is a loss of income. It strikes me that they should have the privilege of focusing on their well-being rather than worrying about financial concerns at the end of each month. Did you know that people who lose their jobs are entitled to 45 weeks of employment insurance? That caregivers get 35 weeks? Well, those who are fighting for their lives get only 15 weeks of benefits. How much are their lives worth? This is pathetic. Billions of dollars in annual deficits and no ability to even increase the number of weeks for people who are fighting for their lives. When will this Liberal government make the right choices and take care of these people who are dealing with illnesses?
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals simply don't get it. They talk about growing the economy and protecting the environment, yet they want to phase out the Canadian energy industry that has the best environmental record on the planet. They say that Indigenous reconciliation is important, yet they refuse to show support for Indigenous-backed energy projects. They claim that their environmental plan will reduce emissions, when in reality it only raises costs on the middle class, a term that they can't even define. They claim to care about national unity, yet they pit premiers, provinces, and regions against one another. Mr. Speaker, I'm proud that my riding is home to significant resource development, and I'm proud that I also worked in that industry for a number of years, along with many of my constituents. The facts are clear, the work has been done, the studies are there, the opportunity is here for this Prime Minister to finally turn words into action. It's time to stop the dither and delay and approve Tech Front.
The Honourable Member for Churchill to Waternook-Eske.
Our region is struggling, and nowhere is this more evident than the rates of child poverty. 63% of children in our region, according to a recent Campaign 2000 report, live in poverty. Unacceptable in a country as wealthy as Canada. These aren't just numbers. These are lives impacted by crushing poverty every single day. And this poverty is directly linked to the poverty of their mothers, women's poverty. The reality is not by accident. It is the result of liberal and conservative political agendas that have sought to exploit, dispossess, and marginalize Indigenous women, their children, and their nations. The federal government must change course and take on the factors that lead to this poverty, from making healthy foods accessible to tackling the housing crisis, from ending gender-based violence to funding childcare, from expanding employment and training to building all-weather roads, from creating gainful employment to ensuring First Nations consent to development on their territories. I stand with the many women in our north and across the country who are demanding better for themselves, their children, and our collective future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Drummond. Mr. Speaker, on the 19th of December last, Antoine Desilets died. He was the father of press photography in Quebec. He received more than 80 awards over the course of his career, and he first became known in America when in 1966, 68, and 69, he won the North American Press Photography Association Awards. He was named Knight of the Ordre National du Québec in 1990, authored 12 books on photography, which were translated into 4 languages and published with more than 650,000 copies. Mr. Desilets introduced generations of Quebecers to the art of photography and inspired them, including several people in this House. For more than 10 years, Quebec's Professional Journalist Federation has been giving out 7 Antoine Desilets Awards every year to acknowledge the best press photos. A determined supporter of independence, he had the joy this fall of seeing his own son, Luc Desilets, enter this House as a member for the Bloc Québécois from Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. Luc, my friend, on behalf of all our colleagues and our party, I offer you and your loved ones our sincere condolences.
Mr.
Speaker, International Development Week gives me an opportunity to share an important story that too few Canadians know. Leading the G8 in 2010, Prime Minister Stephen Harper brought the world's attention to something very close to his heart. 10 years into their 15-year window, 2 UN Millennium Development Goals were critically behind. The first, to save the lives of children under 5. The second, to save mothers in and around childbirth. Harper's Muskoka initiative rallied world leaders to meet the challenge and delivered significant results, largely due to his relentless focus on accountability and transparency and the tireless work of the Canadian development community. The initiative would turn out to be a global game changer, helping save the lives of more than 3 million children and 200,000 mothers every single year. In the midst of a global economic crisis, Stephen Harper never lost sight of those around the world who were truly the most vulnerable. He became their quiet champion, and it's a story which should make all Canadians rightly proud.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Happy Black History Month. Not only is my riding one of the fastest growing in the country, but Brampton West is home to Canada's largest Black community. In honor of Black History Month, although the list is extensive, I would like to recognize local leaders in my riding that make Brampton West a better place every day. Rainford Cornish, a leader in our community who wears many hats as a high school teacher, a mentor, a volunteer, and also an author. He empowers and inspires Black youth through sports, volunteering, and teachings of Black history. I'd also like to highlight Yvonne Squires, a community activist who keeps everyone on their toes, including myself, by advocating and fighting for the most vulnerable in our community. She has been a voice for the voiceless for over 45 years, and I'm so proud to call her my friend. Thank you for inspiring our community and for making Canada a better place for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oral questions, question orale. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
According to the original TMX plan, a private company was going to use investors' money to build it. It would have already been operational this past December, and the government would be making money on tolls and taxes, not losing money due to delay. Now, yesterday, the finance minister was asked whether all obstacles had been removed from the construction of TMX. He could not answer the question. So, can the Prime Minister guarantee an in-service date for Trans Mountain?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We were pleased with the court decision yesterday that highlighted that our approach on balancing environment and economic growth works. We worked with Indigenous communities, we worked with environmentalists and their concerns, and we're moving forward on getting our oil resources to markets responsibly and sustainably after 10 years of a Conservative government that was unable to do that. Regardless of their boosterism of the Alberta economy, they were unable to get it done the way that Albertans and people in the oil sector needed. We are getting it done because we're doing it the right way, Mr. Speaker.
That's true. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
They're not doing it the right way, they're doing it the wrong way. Instead of passing emergency legislation to deal with the court ruling, they decided to restudy the same issues, but just with a different government department. They then waited over a month to restart Indigenous consultations. But here's what the court did say yesterday. Project opponents, quote, cannot tactically use the consultation process as a means to try to veto a project. That's good news. However, the Prime Minister has promised to use a United Nations declaration to create a new threshold requiring free, prior, and informed consent. How does the Prime Minister expect any new projects to get built under that regime?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, everything the member opposite just said demonstrates at which point the Conservative Party does not understand the modern economy, does not understand the expectations of Canadians to be responsible around environmental concerns, to work with Indigenous communities, and to get things done the right way. No wonder they failed for 10 years. No wonder they keep failing.
The Honourable Member for sorry, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's this Prime Minister that has failed to get TMX started over a year after it was supposed to have already been underway. Now, there are dozens of First Nations communities who supported Northern Gateway. There are dozens who support Trans Mountain, and there are dozens who support Frontier Mine. And the courts have ruled that no one community has a veto over projects. But the Prime Minister is using a United Nations declaration to create a new threshold of free, prior, and informed consent. Does the Prime Minister not realize that granting a veto power that does not currently exist will stop any project from being built in the future?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, demonstrations of complete misunderstanding and miscomprehension by the Conservatives on these issues. First and foremost, to correct the record, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is being built right now. So the member opposite, I'm sure, didn't want to make false statements to this House. Secondly, the court reaffirmed yesterday that free, prior, informed consent does not mean a veto for any communities. That is something that is absolutely clear that they are choosing to misunderstand for political reasons.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
It's the current law that states that. His new law will undermine that. Monsieur le Président, il y a...
Mr. Speaker, there was a serious backlash against the Prime Minister's plan to require media organizations to get licenses. This is not just an issue of press freedom. The author of the recommendations even said that media content should be regulated. So will the Prime Minister reject all of this report? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we will always support a free, strong and independent press. The report that we received proposes exempting news media from licensing requirements. I want to be clear, we will not impose licensing requirements on news organizations, and we will not regulate the content either. Our goal is to ensure that Canadians have access to diverse and high-quality sources of news. The Honourable Member for... the Honourable Opposition Leader.
Of the independence of the press. This report goes far beyond requiring licenses for news organizations. Now, this is the same government that rigged election advertising rules to prevent opposition parties from advertising while they were running around the country making government announcements. This is the same government that put Jerry Diaz in charge of a fund to be donated, to be bailed out to media companies. These new recommendations would be the biggest threat to freedom of speech in a generation. This report calls for the CRTC to impose, quote, codes of conduct regarding all media content undertakings, not just news organizations. So, very simple question. Will the Prime Minister reject this report in its entirety?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the third-party report we received proposes to exempt news media from licensing requirements, but allow me to be absolutely unequivocal. We will not require a licensing, impose a licensing requirement on news organizations, nor will we regulate news content. Our focus is on ensuring that Canadians have access to diverse, credible, and high-quality news.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quebecers sometimes agree with Bill 21, and they may even be free to challenge it before the courts, but they cannot receive money from the federal government funded by Quebec taxpayers in order to challenge this bill, which is the subject of a consensus in Quebec. The federal government just gave $125,000 to the English School Board of Montreal to challenge Bill 21. Now, we clearly saw it yesterday that the federal government only likes François Legault under certain circumstances.
Honourable Premier Ministre.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, allow me to be very clear. The Court Challenges program makes decisions in a completely independent way. It does not report to the government or ministers or any politicians. It is a program that exists to help Canadians defend their rights before the courts. And they do that in a completely independent way of the government. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Yesterday, the Minister of Justice said that challenging Bill 21 is the right thing to do. Today, the Prime Minister says, no, it's totally independent. At the time, Mr. Parizeau used to say that governments are made to govern. In other words, they have to take responsibility for their decisions. The English Montreal School Board reports to the Quebec government exclusively. We talked to the cabinet, and they're very unhappy. So will the government walk back this decision and withdraw this illegitimate funding? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Court Challenges program is entirely independent from the government. We cannot grant or withdraw funding. Their process exists to help Canadians defend their fundamental rights before the courts. But I understand that the Bloc leader wants to talk about anything except his opposition to NAFTA, an agreement which will be good for Quebecers, good for companies, and he is wrong in opposing the new NAFTA.
Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
In 2017, the Liberals changed the law to end discrimination against Indigenous women. But because of a lack of resources, it can take up to 2 years to get their status recognized.
To recognize a woman's status means that gender discrimination continues. This is another example of pretty words by the Liberals, but a lack of concrete action. So when will the Prime Minister step up and properly fund the department to finally end the discrimination of Indigenous women?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Canadians well know we have invested historic amounts in reconciliation, in new programs, in new funding, in making sure that we are creating opportunities to move forward in partnership, in respect. And part of that means it does take a little longer to do because we are working with Indigenous communities to drive those solutions, not determining solutions from Ottawa. Now, from their corner of the House, they can tell exactly what we need to do. We prefer to listen to Indigenous communities themselves and get it done the right way for them, with them.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby South.
Last year, when referring to the RCMP raids on the Wet'suwet'en people, the Prime Minister said, quote, it was not handled the way it should have been. Now the situation, again, very serious. The Prime Minister has a role to play. The chiefs have asked to meet with the Prime Minister, but he's refused. Police action is not the solution. Dialogue is. The Prime Minister claims that nation-to-nation relationships are the most important. So when will the Prime Minister meet with the Wet'suwet'en chiefs?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, our government continues to be committed to reconciliation, which means partnership, respect, and engagement. This is an issue that is entirely under provincial jurisdiction. The RCMP's operations there were directed by the provincial government. And on this side of the House, we respect Premier Horgan and the work he's doing to advance reconciliation, and I recommend that the members opposite do the same. He's doing good work on reconciliation, and we continue to support him through a difficult situation.
Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's failures with respect to our relationship with China have been numerous. Later today, the Prime Minister's point man on Canada-China relations will appear at the Canada-China Parliamentary Committee. Canadians are hoping that he will shed some light on the situation on the ground, what progress has been made since he arrived, and how this government is addressing the many problems with this relationship. Can the Prime Minister confirm whether any political staff have been involved in preparing Ambassador Barton for his committee appearance this evening?
The Right Honourable Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Ambassador Dominic Barton is an exceptional individual with great depth of understanding of the situation in China over many, many years, and has also been an extremely active member working with me, working with the Government of Canada in terms of moving forward constructively on the sometimes difficult relationship with China right now, particularly around the return of the two Michaels who've been unfairly detained. We have full confidence in Ambassador Barton's ability to do this job and his ability to present himself to committee very well tonight.
The Honourable Member for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Foreign Affairs stated that the government had secured an aircraft that could bring those Canadians who wish to leave China back to Canada. Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig have been wrongfully imprisoned in China for 422 days. Will both Mr. Spavor and Mr. Kovrig be joining their fellow Canadians on this flight and returning home where they belong?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians right across the country are concerned about the coronavirus. We are doing everything we can to reduce the fear and the anxiety by saying that the risk level is low and that we are keeping Canadians safe. The way the members opposite are choosing to make light of this and play politics with it, with clever little games, is quite frankly unworthy of this House of Commons, Mr. Speaker, and I hope the member opposite withdraws that question and the silliness involved. Really, we deserve better, even from the Conservatives.
The Honourable Member for Richmond, Athabasca. Mr. Speaker, we've learned that the flight scheduled to repatriate Canadians in China tonight has been delayed, supposedly due to weather. And yet there are flights landing in China now. We know that the U.S., Japan, South Korea, Jordan, Great Britain, and Portugal have all been able to get their residents home successfully. Can the Prime Minister explain this delay and tell us whether the Liberals' shaky relationship with China is to blame for the delay, or is it really just the weather? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Yes, it is really just the weather, Mr. Speaker. Perhaps if the Conservatives were in power, they would have ordered the pilot to fly in dangerous weather conditions, but we respect the professionalism of pilots and the decisions that they make to keep Canadians safe. Really, I think that this suggestion doesn't deserve to be repeated in this House. The Honourable Member for Richmond North Athabasca. Well, if the Conservatives had been in power, those Canadians would already be back in the country, Mr. Speaker. Now, we know that the Chinese are trying to expand their global influence through the so-called Belt and Road Initiative. Many experts believe this is just another way for China to pursue aggressive global expansion and trap developing countries in a spiral of financial and political dependence on China. Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister clarify the government's role in promoting Canadian businesses under this Belt and Road Initiative in China? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. The Asian Investment Bank is something that we are using to promote inclusive investment and growth, along with many other countries. Trade tensions are rising in the world, and the Conservative leader is suggesting that we should close the door to that development. This development bank is working in Asia, including many underdeveloped countries, and the Conservatives are misleading us if they suggest that helping with landslides in Sri Lanka or managing flooding in the Philippines or helping development in the in Indonesia is not a good thing.
The Prime Minister should know that the AIB is part of a colonial project to expand Chinese control and influence throughout Asia, and many people are concerned about it. Now, 4 years ago, this Prime Minister announced the beginning of extradition discussions with China. Imagine it, Canada extraditing people to China. And yesterday at the Canada-China Committee, it was confirmed by officials that these conversations have actually taken place informally. So I'd like the Prime Minister to clarify for the House, will he close the door on an extradition treaty with China, or does he intend to leave leave that door open.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the course of many years, we have had many different discussions on many different topics. But our values and our criteria and our expectations on extradition treaties are very, very clear. And China would not qualify now or anytime soon for extradition treaty with Canada.
That's right.
L'Honorable, the Honourable Member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Mr. Speaker, I hope that marks a real change of heart, but I'm very concerned about this government's commitment to our values. Ambassador Dominic Barton led a corporate retreat in Kashgar 4 miles from a Uyghur concentration camp. Wow. While leading McKinsey, he also worked to improve the image of pro-Kremlin Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych, and he prepared a report for the Saudi government, which was used to crack down on critics. Given his record at McKinsey, does the Prime Minister really have confidence in Dominic Barton's commitment to defending Canadian values on the world stage?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I have tremendous confidence in Mr. Barton. He is an excellent public servant, an excellent ambassador to Canada, and he, as the members opposite will see tonight, is a deep expert in how we're going to move forward on improving the situation for Canadians in China right now.
That's right.
Honourable Député de...
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Well, I'm a polite boy, Mr. Speaker, so I don't turn down an invitation, so let's talk aluminum. Quebec is not an instrument of the federal government, and there's a relationship between aluminum and Bill 21. In both cases, it's clear that the federal government is not working in the interests of Quebec. And, in fact, sometimes they work against the interests of Quebec. Can the Prime Minister admit that he personally wants to fund a court challenge to Bill 21? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. No, Mr. Speaker. The court challenges program is administered very independently of the government. But when it comes to aluminum, I have to say once again that aluminum workers are people that we care about. We were thinking of them the whole time that we negotiated NAFTA. We were able to defend ourselves against some of the punitive tariffs that the U.S. had imposed. And this agreement, this new NAFTA, is good for aluminum workers, for the aluminum industry. The Bloc Québécois should be defending those workers and supporting this free trade agreement. The Honourable Member for Laurentides-Labelle. Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat it. The federal government is giving $125,000 to the English Language School Board of Montreal, which has a budget of $350 million per year. But the criteria for the Court Challenges program are clear. To be eligible, an organization needs to have a financial need for the money. So why is this government funding this court challenge? The reality is that if Ottawa is funding it, it must support the court challenge. It's that simple. Why is the government going against the clearly expressed desire of Quebecers? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I have the impression that I'm going to be saying this many times in the House today. The Court Challenges program is administered entirely independently from the government. Perhaps that's why the Stephen Harper government wanted to cut that program, because it was entirely independent of any decision, a political decision made by any Canadian government.
For Port Moody, Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, 14 years after an individual violently murdered his partner, he murdered another woman because his parole officer permitted him to seek the service of sex workers. The parole officer facilitated a murderer to repeat his offense and take the life of another innocent life by enabling him to satiate his criminal appetite. Will the government amend Bill C-5 to require parole board members and parole officers to receive new sexual assault training so vulnerable women like Marilyn Levesque wouldn't die tragically because of bureaucratic incompetence?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this was a terrible story, and we have deep sympathy for Marie-Hélène Lévesque's family and friends. We have questions. People have very difficult questions to ask, and that's why we're all pleased that Correctional Services Canada and the Parole Board are launching a board of investigation into circumstances that led to this tragic case. And I will highlight it was disappointing that we weren't able to move forward with Ms. Ambrose's bill on judicial trainings because the Conservatives chose to play politics with it.
Yes, it was. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, yesterday Bill C-5 on sexual assault training was tabled in this House. Let me be very clear. We support this important bill, which was originally a Conservative initiative. However, given the heinous murder of Ms. Lévesque, we believe it's important to add an amendment to include training for parole board members. Will the government agree to such an amendment? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are pleased that Correctional Services Canada is launching an investigation into the circumstances that led to this tragic situation. It's a truly horrible situation, and we have a huge amount of sympathy for the family and friends of Marie-Hélène Lévesque. We all want to get answers to these very important questions about how something like this could have happened, and we will be waiting for the results of the investigation before we decide what we can do to make sure this never happens again.
Barry Springwater Oro Medonte.
Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Budget Officer recently released the report on infrastructure spending. Alarmingly, this report tells Canadians there is no way of tracking where money is being spent. The report went so far as to say the Liberals' infrastructure plan does not exist. This House recently passed an important motion calling on the Auditor General to investigate these lost billions of dollars. Will the Prime Minister commit today to ensure that the Auditor General has the resources he needs to do this important work?
Here, here. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we made historic investments in infrastructure in order to grow the economy and improve Canadians' quality of life. We will remember that in the last campaign just a few months ago, Conservatives campaigned on $18 billion worth of cuts to much-needed infrastructure across this country. We choose to invest in infrastructure to grow the economy. And on the Auditor General, we've given more resources to the Auditor General, and we'll highlight that it was the Conservative government that cut millions of dollars from the Auditor General's budget. We believe and support in our officers of Parliament. We will continue to.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister likes to talk about politics. He likes to talk about transparency and openness. And yet, the Liberals voted against our motion calling on the Auditor General to investigate the Liberal infrastructure fiasco. This House has spoken. The Prime Minister lost the vote. So rather than encouraging MasterCard with $50 million, if this Prime Minister isn't afraid of his own record, and if he really is open and transparent, will he commit to giving the Auditor General the money that he needs? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in fact, it was under the Conservatives that there were cuts to the Auditor General. We have worked with the Auditor General to increase funding for his office in 2018-2019, and with that increase, the office was able to add 38 full-time employees. I'm glad that the Conservatives are finally interested in parliamentary officers because they were the party who cut funding to the Auditor General. That's over $6 million. They also forced the Parliamentary Budget Officer to go to the court to get further documents.
For Skeena Bulkley Valley.
Mr. Speaker, the issues surrounding Coastal GasLink and the Wet'suwet'en have been deeply divisive for communities in my riding. The world is watching, and no one wants to see last January's confrontation repeated. This government's promises of reconciliation are on the line, and the chiefs have asked to meet with this Prime Minister. Why is he refusing to meet with them?
The Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, our government is committed to a renewed relationship with Indigenous peoples based on recognition of rights, respect, cooperation, and partnership. We will continue to engage with leaders from across the country. The Wet'suwet'en issue is one that is with the provincial government, and we would highlight that the former member for Skeena-Bulkley Valley, Nathan Cullen, has been hired by the government of British Columbia to help with this process. We have full confidence in the NDP government in British Columbia to move forward in the correct way. Why don't the NDP members in this House have the same confidence in the NDP government of British Columbia?
That's right.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
I want to meet with this Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker. The Liberals' national housing strategy was announced with much fanfare, yet they failed miserably. Saying that they will end chronic homelessness in 10 years is just not good enough. Right. People are sleeping on the streets right now. In Vancouver alone, 40% of the homeless population are Indigenous, and yet their overall population is only 2%. Wow. So much for their most important relationship. We need to have a housing strategy for Indigenous peoples by Indigenous peoples. Will the government increase the funding for housing to end the homelessness crisis in Canada once and for all?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we put in place a national housing strategy that is focused on ending homelessness, on working with communities to resolve the challenges facing urban Indigenous populations. We are continuing to move forward in a meaningful way. What have we achieved, Mr. Speaker? We've seen almost 1 million Canadians lifted out of poverty, have achieved our poverty reduction targets way ahead of schedule. We recognize there is much more to do, and we will do that, Mr. Speaker. We're focused on action on this side of the House and not just rhetoric like those opposite.
The Honourable Member for Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, victims of sexual assault must be treated with dignity and respect. They must be certain that judges will render rulings on their cases that will not be influenced by the myths and stereotypes that all too often crop up in such cases. Can the Right Honourable Prime Minister tell the House what measures our government is taking to reassure victims and strengthen the public's confidence in our legal system? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. I'd like to thank the member for her question and for her hard work. Canadians expect judges to receive the necessary training to grasp the complex nature of sexual assault and the myths that are all too often related to it. They also expect their elected officials to go beyond partisan barriers on these issues. Yesterday, we tabled a bill to guarantee that judges undertake training on factors that affect people's confidence in the legal system, and this bill will help to strengthen the confidence in our legal system and its efficiency.
Mr. Speaker, we can only address ongoing issues of racism when we allow people to speak freely about their experiences. However, this government recently fired a public servant overseeing anti-racism initiatives because she spoke out against the Prime Minister. And now the government is mandating, quote, duty of loyalty training for some government employees. The government claims to care about diversity and then tries to silence dissenting voices. Will the Prime Minister cancel his duty of loyalty policy and protect the right of public servants to speak out about their experiences?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, over the past 5 years, we've put in place a merit-based appointments process that reflects much greater diversity within the public service, within the Government of Canada. We saw for all too long the appointments process be politicized or not reflect the diversity of Canada, and that is why we have increased massively the appointments of women, the appointments of racialized Canadians, appointments of Indigenous peoples, the appointments of people with disabilities. We recognize there is more to do, and we will continue to work hard on that every day, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, last year this House passed a bill by the member for St. Albert Edmonton that would help jurors seek medical or psychiatric counseling for the horrific images and testimony that they deal with at a trial. The bill passed this House with all party support. Since then, some provinces and territories have moved forward with their own measures to support jurors. Meanwhile, this government has failed to act. When will the Prime Minister take action and address his responsibility to Canadians fulfilling their civic duty as jurors?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we recognize that there is more investments that need to be made into mental health support for Canadians, whether it's PTSD for veterans or correctional services officers or policemen and women, whether it's moving forward on greater supports for young people or for Indigenous communities or for people who have experiences within our justice system. We know there's more to do on fighting for mental health. That's why we actually made a commitment of billions of dollars more investment on mental health for the provinces, and we're looking forward to working on that.
The Honourable Member for Puttavanchi.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is attacking law-abiding firearms owners with actions that will do nothing to curb gun and gang violence. Many folks in my riding are lawful firearms owners. They've taken the required rigorous screening and safety training. They take their privileges and responsibilities as firearms owners very seriously. Right. I, too, very well know the process, having obtained my PAL and RPAL licenses. I'm wondering, is the Prime Minister able to explain to this House the process of obtaining a firearms possession and acquisition license?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We are committed to protecting communities and reducing gun violence in Canada. We strengthen controls on firearms through Bill C-71. We enhanced background checks. We required sellers to check licenses of anyone who wants to buy a gun. We've invested over $327 million to address gun and gang violence, and we will continue to strengthen our gun laws by banning dangerous assault weapons and working with provinces, territories, and mayors to combat gun violence and keep communities safe. It's very simple, Mr. Speaker. We will strengthen gun control. Conservatives want to weaken it.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Heritage.
Mr. Speaker, Section 5 of the Firearms Act says that a person who has threatened or committed a violent crime, a crime related to harassment, drug crimes, or has serious mental health issues is unable to have a firearms license. A person without a gun license can't legally have a gun. Right. It seems that the Prime Minister's red flag proposal is a solution in search of a problem. Is the Prime Minister's proposal different than what has existed for decades, or was he simply unaware of the law?
Hear, hear. Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I'm pleased to be able to inform the member opposite of what we are planning to do. There are many individuals who have firearm licenses, who own firearms, who begin to present a threat to themselves or to their families. At that point, medical health professionals can alert them not to just take away the firearms, which exist.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing the answer. Maybe it's just me, but I hear some noise. I'll just ask everyone to take a deep breath, and the Right Honourable Prime Minister, I'll let him continue.
The police currently have the ability to remove firearms from someone who presents a threat to themselves or others, but they cannot suspend the license and prevent that person from acquiring new firearms. That's what the red flag law is all about.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, several regions of Quebec are facing a real housing crisis, the worst in 15 years. The funding that would allow us to build social housing is collecting dust in Ottawa's coffers. Why? Because the government is picking yet another fight in what is Quebec's jurisdiction, despite the fact that the National Assembly unanimously asked the PM to step back. On behalf of the 500,000 Quebecers who are struggling to find housing, will this government answer Quebec's call? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. After many years of the federal government not committing to housing, over the past 5 years, we've invested massively to face this housing crisis across the country with the national housing strategy that is having a true impact in our communities across the country. We signed agreements with all the provinces and territories except one, and we hope that Quebec will soon sign an agreement to allow us to invest massively in housing for Quebecers, and I would encourage Quebec's provincial government to sign this agreement with us. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, this is a twofold crisis. On the one hand, it's hard to find housing and it's also expensive. Right now in Quebec, there are 82,000 households that spend more than 80% of their income on lodging. This is leaving people flat broke. Will this government listen to the call of community groups and families across Quebec and transfer Quebec housing funding without any strings attached? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Papineau, I regularly hear Quebecers tell me how the housing crisis is affecting them. I work with community associations, and I've worked with them for many years since I've been a member, and they recognize that it's really unfortunate that the federal government no longer could play a role in housing. But over the past 5 years, we've taken on this role. We're investing massively across the country, and I hope, Mr. Speaker, that Quebec will soon sign this agreement so that we can massively invest in housing in Quebec together.
For Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister and his downtown Toronto Liberal MPs cold-shouldered Ontario last year when the Premier submitted a plan to build the urgently needed Ontario Line subway to ease capacity pressures on existing lines.
I'm having a hard time hearing the question. There's some noise starting. I just want to make sure that everybody understands whether it's the answer or the question. I think everybody wants to hear it equally. The Honourable Member for Thornhill, please continue.
Go ahead. You're up again.
Well, Mr. Speaker, if I may start again.
Sure.
Well, on the eve of the election, you'll remember, Mr. Speaker, weeks after a commitment from the Conservative leader, the Prime Minister reluctantly matched that province. Well, Mr. Speaker, shovels are ready, Ontario is ready, Toronto is ready. When will the PM deliver?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, over the past years, I've had many excellent conversations with the Mayor of Toronto about his ambitious investments that he wants to make in public transit, and every step of the way, the federal government has been there to be a partner, and I am pleased that things are now moving with the province. I look forward to moving forward on concrete plans to invest in public transit for Canadians, and I certainly hope that Mr. Ford will move forward enthusiastically with us. The money is there. We want to invest it. We just need the plans to be concrete so we can do it.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Midnapore.
Mr. Speaker, when it comes to young families looking for housing, this government gets an F. First, they create the dream-killing stress test. And now we learn that their first-time homebuyers initiative is a flop, with mortgage value caps set too low for families in Toronto and Vancouver to buy into the market. When will the Liberals stop building barriers and start providing solutions to Canadians just trying to buy their first home?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the First-Time Homebuyers Initiative reduces the costs for first-time homebuyers in a significant way and has helped families right across the country. Yes, we recognize that in certain areas, the GTA, the Lower Mainland and Victoria, the cap is too low, which is why we committed to raising it in the last election. And now that we've formed government, Mr. Speaker, we will be able to do exactly that to ensure that more Canadians can afford their first homes. That's what this government is doing for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Wellington, Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, last week a review panel released its environmental assessment of CN's proposed truck rail hub in Milton. The panel said this project will likely have a significant adverse impact on human health and air quality. It's now up to the Cabinet. Halton Region opposes this project. Regional Chair and former Liberal MP Gary Carr opposes this project. The people of Halton oppose this project. Will the Liberal government, including 2 Liberal cabinet ministers from Halton, tell the people of Halton Region their position on this project?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as always, we will move forward in a responsible way and pay very close attention to concerns of people on the ground. Indeed, we've heard the environmental preoccupations. I can highlight that our very own new outstanding member for Milton has been very clear on his concerns around this project, both to caucus and to Cabinet, and we will move forward in a responsible way as Canadians expect it.
The honourable member for Niagara Centre.
Mr. Speaker, the new NAFTA safeguards more than $2 billion a day in cross-border trade and tariff-free access. Prime Minister, how will the new NAFTA agreement encourage economic diversification and contribute to strengthen our nation's international trade performance, including for my constituents in the region of Niagara?
Order. I just want to remind the honourable members that when they place a question through the chair, not directly to the person they're addressing it to. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Through you, Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank the member for Niagara Centre for his question and for all the work he does for his region. New NAFTA safeguards over $2 billion a day in cross-border trade. That means businesses in Niagara and across the country have virtually tariff-free access into the U.S. market, supporting hundreds of thousands of Canadian jobs. This means good news for workers, employers, and the economy everywhere throughout the country, including the beautiful Niagara region. So let us all in this House do our part and ratify this agreement.
Absolutely. The honourable member for Carlton Trail, Eagle Creek.
In a memo to the Prime Minister, officials warned that aging government technology systems are at risk of failing. These systems, which provide EI benefits, old age security, and child support, are critical to many Canadians and are at further risk due to upgrades being delayed because of procurement problems. Will the Prime Minister correct an omission in the minister's mandate letter and instruct her to make the maintenance and replacement of these systems a priority?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as a government, we have been able to invest in new ways of helping Canadians, from the Canada Child Benefit that gives hundreds of dollars more every month to 9 out of 10 Canadian families. We've increased the guaranteed income supplement for our most vulnerable single seniors. We recognize that our positive changes to EI have made a real difference in people's lives as well, and we will continue to ensure that the infrastructure that allows us to deliver these programs to Canadians remains solid and upgraded.
The honourable member for Battleford Lloydminster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2019, Canadian farmers faced another difficult harvest made worse by this Liberal government adding an additional tax burden. From grain drying to rail transportation, heating, and electricity, farmers are being gouged by the Liberal carbon tax. Saskatchewan farmers are expecting to lose 8% of their total net income to the carbon tax this year, and that number is set to rise. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister please finally acknowledge that his carbon tax is unfairly punishing agriculture producers and finally fully exempt farmers from the carbon tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there's a number of times today when the members opposite have brought up the PBO's work and his report. It is exciting to see that they actually give credence to the Parliamentary Budget Officer now. But maybe they could pay attention to the fact that the Parliamentary Budget Officer has clearly stated that the price on pollution both cuts pollution and puts money back into the pockets of families in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, right across the country. Our plan also ensures that 100% of direct proceeds from the price on pollution go back into that province of territory. People are better off with our price on pollution as we move forward to fight climate change.
The honourable member for Guesnett Bay, Mississippi, Churchill River.
Mr. Speaker, on January 24th, Onion Lake Cree Nation in Saskatchewan declared a state of emergency as a result of a significant increase in drug and gang-related activities. Last week, the leadership of Onion Lake and the surrounding First Nation community signed a Western Chiefs Declaration with the support of the City of Lloydminster to take on these serious problems. When will the Prime Minister take gang and rural crime seriously? And what is his plan to keep the people of the First Nations, the surrounding communities, and the rural municipalities safe?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the road to reconciliation means walking in partnership with Indigenous communities and with Indigenous peoples and respecting and reflecting their priorities. We will work with communities across the country on challenges related to violence, challenges to mental health. We will work with them on ensuring that there is greater security for Canadians right across the country, including Indigenous peoples. I'm very pleased to see members on all sides of this House taking this issue seriously. We will work together to make sure that reconciliation is real in this country.
The Honourable Member for Sydney Victoria.
In order to help address the challenges of climate change and biodiversity loss, the Indigenous Leadership Initiative hosted the Land Needs Guardians Conference in Ottawa. They shared that Indigenous nations are at the forefront of a growing movement to create Indigenous protected and conserved areas. Can the Prime Minister update the House on our efforts to ensure the protection of these conserved areas and the role that Indigenous peoples play in protecting and conserving lands?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the member for Sydney Victoria for his work on reconciliation. We're working with Indigenous partners to develop and support Indigenous leadership in conservation through Indigenous Guardians programs, through establishment of the new Indigenous protected and conserved areas. We're moving forward with ambitious plans to conserve 25% of Canada's land and 25% of Canada's oceans by 2025 through a number of conservation measures. We are delivering in partnership with Indigenous peoples and with Canadians from coast to coast to coast.
Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals brag about their ocean protection plan, but for it to work, they need more than words. They refuse to spend over $150 million of funding. They promise to protect our coasts, the marine species, and people who live on them, but they never miss a chance to push dangerous projects like TMX ahead. Mr. Speaker, our coasts are in danger. Pacific wild salmon are in the middle of a historic crisis. When will the Liberals stop breaking their promises, invest the necessary resources, and protect our coasts?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
In the last mandate, we moved forward with a historic oceans protection plan representing $1.5 billion of investment in world-class marine protection. We will continue to make the investments necessary, including the refurbishment and revitalization and renewal of our Coast Guard fleet. We know that there is much more to do, particularly around protecting salmon stocks and preserving the wild salmon. We will continue to work with partners provincially and Indigenous partners to make sure we're doing everything we can to keep our coasts protected and beautiful.
That's all the questions and answers for today. I would like to draw the attention of the honourable members, the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Dennis King, Premier of Prince Edward Island. Now, I believe we have a point of order for the honourable member for Medicine Hat, Carson Warner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a point of privilege. I wanted it arising out of question period. When the Prime Minister was responding to a question asked by one of my colleagues, he misled the House in his statement. He said that they, meaning the police, cannot suspend the license of an individual, and then prevent that individual from acquiring a firearm. I am here to tell the Prime Minister and you, through you, Mr. Speaker, that Section 5 of the Canadian Firearms Act allows that to happen specifically, and I can read it for you, as well as Section 117 of the Criminal Code.
I understand that the honourable member is trying to inform the House, but I think we're bordering on debate on that. Order. Yeah. I'll take that under consideration and come back to the House if necessary. Thank you.